Alright everyone, so I finally got around to watching Andor Season 2, and we are back with the show, and even though it is now officially released with its first 3 episodes, and we are back at continuing Cassian Andor's journey and fighting against the Empire, especially within this new season leading into the events of Rogue One. Plus, this will be a spoiler-free review based on what I think, especially if this is heading in a good direction, especially for this critically acclaimed Star Wars show that as I'm going to do for you guys in this video, so let's do it. And so, if you're new, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. But now, let's talk about Andor Season 2. And now, I'm going to start off by saying that if you know Andor as a series, especially if you know, especially with Lucasfilm doing a show like this, and this is going to be leading up to the events of Rogue One, especially for what Cassian Andor delivers, especially for what he portrays in this role of, especially from being a thief and now to being a hero fighting against the Empire and joining the rebellion. Plus, this is like a different type of a Star Wars show that we have ever seen. And plus, it doesn't even feel like Star Wars. In fact, even though the first time I watched this show, it kind of feels different. It sets itself outside of the original stuff, especially as it's not built upon nostalgia, like some special cameos or Easter eggs from any other older Star Wars characters. No, it's a standalone solo show. It's a grounded storyline, especially with Cassian following up. Doing his journey, trying to become this leader, and trying to do that, especially going into season 2. Technically, this is marked as the final season for how this was going to work out. These were going to be 3 episodes, and that each arc is going to be taking place every 4 years, leading up to the events of Rogue One, and that's something that I was really fascinated by, especially for what they were presenting itself to the audience, following along of Cassian's journey, especially with being played by Adriana, especially from Cassian's perspective, especially with the Empire's perspective for what their agenda is, especially if you know the series as well. You definitely get to hear the political side of the Empire for what they have to address, and especially for how this is all going to tie in together. And now, especially from my experience from this, from what I've seen so far, I just do think it is good. It is great storytelling based on where we left off from season 1 and going into the second season. And trust me, especially I think within the first 5 minutes, I mean, in the first, I'd say 10 to 15 minutes, it really got to explore more of Cassian, especially for what he's after. Especially, there's no time to waste because this is the final season of this show, and technically, even though it's season 2, but this is leading into the events of Rogue One, and that's why we see Cassian in this look. That's how it's gonna lead into the events of that movie. Now, especially for where we left off our characters, especially after season 1's finale and its cliffhanger, and even though I really enjoyed season 1, it had a brilliant storytelling. It focused on the street level side of Star Wars that we never got to witness ever in this universe that we've known for all this time, especially within this big franchise. And even with the storytelling and how it is all laid out, especially for what Cassian goes through, especially for what he has to develop more as a person, for what he has to accomplish, especially with his role in season 2, it's now become more serious as he gets to follow more on this path, and it becomes more dangerous than we ever thought, because especially as with season 2, with its first 3 episodes, it is marked as chapter 1, as the first arc, especially as it really gets to follow through. But even though I have issues with some of the stuff that I've seen, especially in terms of the pacing, but even though I really liked Andor, I really liked it as a show, especially even though we had to wait. There was a 3-year gap for season 2 to come out, especially with the pacing and trying to follow through on what was really going on. But hey, it is a Star Wars show after all. I think it's a well-directed layout piece of television, but especially for how it's gonna follow up to the viewer. And I just definitely think a bit of the pacing is part of the problem, but it definitely feels like good television to get you hooked in. But after episode 3, I was really hooked, especially from that final shot. And I mean, I am ready to see more for what is going to lead into the events of Rogue One, especially from that opening act to that towards the end of this final season, especially for what it has accomplished. And even though with Diego Luna, who portrays the role as Cassian, he really gets to portray this character which I really adore, because this was a show that no one has heard of until it was critically acclaimed by people. Like, this is a different type of show, and that everyone should get into, because even though if you've seen the marketing for the show, you know what I'm talking about. But it's just like one of those things where it was just like tough to get me hooked. But even though towards by the end of chapter 1, I think I was hooked. I think like some of the action sequences that were presented, especially in all the Star Wars fashion with the blasters and the stormtroopers, it kind of makes sense for how they tie it all in. I definitely think the elements from the storytelling, especially from the Empire's perspective on like how they're gonna rise up, and even though like it moves a bit slow, and also there is one thing that I would like to address, especially going into season 2. There's a scene that involves kind of dangerous stuff, like I would say like sexual assault, but I'll just leave it at that, just to warn the viewer for what they're about to get into, because this show really dives into those themes in like the Star Wars universe. Like, I never had a chance to adapt into this show, because especially out of all the Star Wars and Disney Plus shows that we've seen, I'm pretty sure some of those have lacked, but especially with Andor, like, and the way that it dives deep more into these characters. I mean, even though the direction seems a bit off, but I think it's definitely heading in a good direction, based on where we're going with these arcs, especially for how, especially if you know Rogue One as like the best Star Wars movie. It's like great storytelling that introduced Cassian into Star Wars. But I just generally think that like with this entire season as a whole, and for how it's gonna hook the viewer, if I'm gonna continue to keep watching. But I gotta say, like, I think I am enjoying it so far, but the pacing was a bit off. I did like the storytelling, especially as for where Cassian is at, especially now he's turned into a leader, and now he has to help fight more against the Empire. And this is like, I mean, this is like really good storytelling for how it is executed in like a way. I liked what I've seen. I think it's sort of strong, and plus I think it ended up strong based on what type of groundwork that they are laying here, especially for the rest of the arcs that are needed to follow, and the rest of our main characters. They are like right where the first season ended, and especially for how it like picks up right after. But even though with its momentum, it's sort of lost there for a little bit. But even though there was like, I think there's like a subplot that like that doesn't fit into the story well, which I mean, I was not a fan of. But I just definitely think that this is the true definition of Star Wars. I pretty much liked Andor season 2, even though I'm curious and intrigued to see for where the rest of the season leads, especially leading up to Rogue One, especially for how that story, especially for how Rogue One is going to address everything that Cassian has been through with his journey, like fighting against the Empire, and all the characters. Like, we definitely got to learn more of them, and especially for what they went through in season 1. And even though season 1 is by far the best piece of Star Wars television that I've seen unfolded on Disney Plus, I mean, it does feel like this universe, it acts like its own drama series. Where this all leads to, I guess we'll have to wait and see and find out, but it kicks into gear, it really gets into action for what Cassian now has to go through next, especially where his journey leads from there. And yeah, I like this new season. Technically it's called the final season, its first arc, but I'm excited to see for where it leads, and I think it's in a good direction so far as we know it. But that's going to do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments below, and what were your thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Andor Season 2. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments down below and give it a rating to 1 out of 10. I'm curious to hear your opinion. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to notifications about future videos. And also follow all my social medias all linked down below. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.